I'm Joe Hicks, the product manager for Build and Bazel at Google.
Hi, I'm Sven Tiffe, Bazel's engineering manager in Munich. Welcome to BazelCon. Joe and me would like to share more details about some topics that Jeff just mentioned in the keynote session and guide you through this year's conference format. So when we look back, a lot of progress that we made over the last year was actually based on feedback that we received during BazelCon 2020 and from a survey that we ran in Q1. So thank you to everyone who provided feedback at last year's BazelCon or participated to the survey. The survey returned a satisfaction rate of 71%, and while showing an improvement over an older survey from 2019, we would clearly like to do much better in the future. We received quite a lot of supportive feedback. For example, many positive comments about Bazel's core features like fast and correct builds, incrementality, multi-language support. We read happy remarks about the renewed long-term support release strategy. We've heard supportive voices about remote execution rules, tool chains, Starlark, and more. However, feedback also showed us room for improvement. One long-standing request of the community has been to improve the management of external dependencies. We've staffed an effort called BazelMod, which got designed and shaped under continuous feedback from the community over the past year. To learn more about it, watch out for Shudong's and Yoon's talk at the External Dependencies Birds of a Feather session later today. Another big cluster of feedback has been asking for better documentation. We've started working on this with a dedicated team of tech writers. We've also heard demand for better IDE support, in particular for Intellij. And also here, we staffed an effort that focused on Intellij and that delivered some remarkable improvements over the year. That being said, there have been areas where we have heard the community's wishes, but have not made as much progress as we've hoped to. For example, we know that users would like to see more love for Windows. However, Windows is not a strategic platform for Bazel right now. Therefore, we're not focusing on it. We do encourage community contributions for bug fixes and for other small, well-structured improvements, though. Another area where we've planned to make more progress than we've been able to deliver is about roadmaps and community work. The roadmap on Bazel's website got cleaned up. However, it's not in great shape yet. Improving our roadmaps as well as community work overall will be a focus area for the upcoming year. Speaking about community work, we've recently updated our governance model. And as Jeff mentioned before, the new governance model provides clearer definitions of contributor roles. It also strengthens the role of community-driven repositories that are led, maintained, and managed by members of the community. It also clearly states now that Bazel is a project overall led by Google, which in particular applies to Bazel itself. And we do want to improve the experience of contributions to Google-maintained repositories. We want to review incoming issues and pull requests in a timely manner. We want to ensure important issues are under active development and receive regular updates. And here we actually did achieve improvements over the past year. We reduced the number of untriaged issues to below 100 by improving our triage model. We've reduced the time required for the initial review of newly filed issues. We've been reducing the average time to close of issues as well. However, not all of this has been fully sustainable yet. There's clearly more to do. Looking at the backlog of issues, we want to get better at identifying work that can be taken into scope for Google or the community. We want to manage pull requests in a timely manner, both for merging them, but also by being better in managing expectations when a pull request cannot be merged at foreseeable future. We want to enable more community contributions, be it in repositories managed by community members or in specific code areas in Bazel. In order to make this happen, we need to work with our community contributors and maintainers.
Some of you asked for the opportunity for the community to play a greater role in more key aspects of Bazel. Specifically, a number of community members have requested greater input into remote execution aspects of Bazel. We considered options to move parts of Bazel core into separate repositories, such as remote execution client, but came to the conclusion that keeping the core of Bazel holistically in one repo is the most effective approach. Recently, we've given code owners rights for the remote module directory to community members who have been long-term contributors to the remote execution sections of the Bazel code base. The goal with this addition of non-Google maintainers is to achieve faster PR turnaround by separating the primary code review, which needs a lot of domain knowledge, from the final pre-merge review, which will focus on security, compliance, and compatibility with Google's internal tests. We anticipate that this will result in higher code quality thanks to the bigger group of expert reviewers and faster end-to-end process. We hope that the Bazel community welcomes this change and sees it as a sign of the Bazel community's transformation as it grows with greater adoption. We plan to explore ways in the next year to better support groups of community members and contributors in various domains. Also, keep an eye out for Helen and Cynthia's talk, Join the Party, which provides some tips for new contributors.
We want to thank our active maintainers and contributors in the various rules repositories. We've heard from you that our overall responsiveness is not always satisfactory. We can see how this affects contributions to repositories which are maintained by us. For repositories that are community-driven, in particular rules repositories, the renewed governance model and maintainer roles should ensure that Google is not a bottleneck. We've also noticed and appreciate the energy that the community is showing in organizing better collaboration next to the Bazel Build project. We cannot always keep up the same velocity as community members for discussing general suggestions like policy changes. However, we've been widening our communication channels and overall availability with the goal of improving our responsiveness. We're also looking forward to collaborate with initiatives in the community. Based on this, we plan to further improve the governance model for the Bazel project.
At the last BazelCon, many of you mentioned that you're hoping for better Bazel documentation. While there's still room to do more and do better, there's been a lot of improvement in Bazel's documentation in the last year. We've added a dedicated team of tech writers, surveyed users, and ran fix-its to address user pain points. In response to your feedback, we refactored navigation to make it easier to find content, improved consistency and freshness, and addressed long-standing documentation bugs. We've also added new content on subjects including hermeticity, sandboxing, persistent workers, the build event protocol, release versioning, backward compatibility, multiplex workers, dynamic execution, and more. Right now, we're working on migrating the docs to better infrastructure that'll have more robust accessibility features, will include localized content, and much more. While we've made a lot of updates to the docs, we encourage community contributions. Feel free to send us documentation pull requests when you find something is broken or needs an update.
Speaking of things that are broken or need an update, we've heard your request for fewer breaking changes for Bazel in the past. And at last BazelCon, we announced moving Bazel to a long-term support release model. And this model got launched this year. We've released Bazel 4.0 as first LTS release, delivered 2 updates over the year, and started to prepare Bazel 5.0 at the time of recording. LTS release tracks provide a stable platform for end users. Within a major LTS version, all updates are fully backwards compatible and won't break your builds. Updates may include upgrades for platform changes. For example, we've added support for Apple Silicon with Bazel 4.1. Updates also include fixes for important issues. For example, we've ported around 50 fixes for remote execution to the 4.0 release track over time. Rolling releases give contributors and rule developers immediate access to vetted binaries near head. However, rolling releases will contain incompatible changes, which are more likely to break your build. We believe and received supportive feedback that this simplifies using Bazel. That being said, this model also creates some challenges for rule authors in particular, and we will provide more guidance on strategies how to keep their rules compatible with release tracks.
We've also received a clear signal that the Bazel community would like to have better support for the Bazel plugin for Intellij and faster, easier updates for new Intellij versions. As a result, we reviewed the entire issue backlog and focused on improving the releasability of the plugin. We've made significant strides on Intellij support. We've improved the development, testing, and release process to enable the Bazel plugin to move to the new IDE versions quicker, which means that the plugin can be developed against IDE EAPs now. This work allowed us to support Intellij 2021.2 on the day it was released. However, contributions towards compatibility with new versions is something we'd like to encourage the community to take on. We're actively looking for contributors to help support Intellij 2021.3. Additionally, a regular meeting has been established for anyone interested in Intellij support for Bazel, especially contributors. We've laid a foundation for the community to contribute functionality and would prefer that the community support use cases that the community requires. Check out the Intellij channel on Slack or watch for an email to Bazel Discuss for more details on how to participate. Detailed instructions about contribution best practices can be found in the Bazel plugin for Intellij GitHub repo. Check out the URL listed on this slide, github.com/bazelbuild/intellij-contributions. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about the great work that the Bazel experts have been doing for Bazel users. The Bazel Experts program has curated a list of companies who provide specialized consulting and services to Bazel users. Many seek out their help with a difficult migration, a complex language rule, or implementing remote execution. The Bazel experts have demonstrated a proficiency in one or more aspects of Bazel and build technology. We don't prefer one over the other, each have their strengths, and if needed, we recommend that you work with them to see if they're a good fit for your organization. I want to thank the Bazel experts for all their hard work in supporting users. I also want to extend a welcome to any companies who wish to become Bazel experts. Contact product@bazel.build if you'd like to find out more about joining the Bazel Experts program. Now, I wanted to take a minute to ask for your feedback. While we can tell Bazel adoption is growing through signals such as PRs, issues, and BazelCon presentations, we don't have a lot of firm quantitative data on Bazel usage. We want to ensure that we're engaging the community in a thoughtful and considered way. Understanding how Bazel is used will help both the Bazel team and the community know how and where best to invest effort. This would also help us to shape the roadmap to address the most important requirements or most popular functionality. We'll send out a survey to all registered attendees after BazelCon to ask for your feedback and ideas about how we can more systemically and holistically understand Bazel usage.
Looking at the next 2 days of BazelCon, remember that there's a continuous Q&A in the area right below this video while each of the sessions is running. There might be a slight delay between asking your question and getting an answer from the right person. We also will have a live Q&A with the Bazel team on Google Meet at the end of the day tomorrow. The session will be limited to a maximum of 500 attendees and is open to the first that join. Also, Birds of a Feather sessions will be live via Google Meet. Each session will feature some lightning talks and have time for discussion and questions with the presenters. Please keep in mind, whether you'd like to ask questions in the Q&A during the stream or participate to the interactive sessions, remember the code of conduct for BazelCon so that everyone can have a pleasant and inclusive experience at the conference. Finally, we will send out a survey shortly after the conference. Please respond to let us know what you liked and where we could improve both BazelCon and the Bazel program.
I wanted to take a minute to thank the BazelCon presenters and everyone that worked so hard to make BazelCon 2021 a reality. While it's difficult being physically distant from the Bazel community, we hope that this year's virtual BazelCon will help bring us together to exchange ideas, connect with each other, and remind us that we're not alone. And we hope that we'll see you all again in person for the next BazelCon. And now, stay tuned for the action-packed presentations both today and tomorrow. Watch out for these and other great talks coming up on Bazelizing a gigantic iOS app, external dependencies, bias busting, license compliance, hermetic vignettes, and more. Thanks again for coming. We hope that you enjoy BazelCon 2021.
Vielen Dank and enjoy the conference.